Welcome back to another video feature of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. Today I am in Primm, Nevada at Whiskey Pete's Casino, and just behind me is the death car of Bonnie and Clyde. And I want to focus on this in this feature to talk a little bit about the issue of dark theming or dark history as it appears in a place like a casino. So in the case of Whiskey Pete's, if you're not familiar with this casino, it's in Primm, Nevada, and it's one of two casinos you'll find there, and I have a series of video features on both. The interesting thing was that it was originally owned by a gas station owner, Pete McIntyre, and there's a bit of a story I think that relates to dark theming and some of the history of this casino. In terms of when Whiskey Pete died in the mid-30s, there was a rumor that he wanted to be buried standing up and next to his bootleg so he could watch over the area, presumably. And it was reported that when workers were developing the area and creating a bridge to connect Whiskey Pete's to Buffalo Bill's, that his body was discovered and reburied. So maybe somewhat interesting and relevant to this particular focus on dark theming. And Whiskey Pete's then, very small casino, but I think what's quite interesting is the fact that they have these exhibits of famous deaths. And in the first one that we're going to look at here, it's Bonnie and Clyde's death car. And so I'll take you here, walking around the casino, and you see some of that exhibit. And let me say it's quite extensive in terms of its design. And I'm asking a series of questions today. So first is, what is the purpose of the dark theming? Does it relate somehow to something that you're offering to the guest? Does it relate to something you're selling? Does it relate to the overall experience of the space itself? Does the dark theming in the space tell a story, or does it supplement another story? And if you think about, in the case of dark theming in a museum of genocide, a Holocaust museum, there's a real purpose to the emphasis on the death. And in the case of Whiskey Pete's, a series of questions I continued to ask throughout my visit of the space was, what exactly is the purpose of this? Does it do something for the guest? Is it a form of spectacle? Is it a way of attracting them to the space? But does it tie in with overall narratives and concerns that you might have when you're trying to deliver a product or a service to the guest? And these are important concerns I think you might see with any use of dark theming. The context of the venue, as I just mentioned, I believe does have a bearing on the use of dark theming. Again, if you're a museum and if you're trying to relate to the guests dark periods of history, then the use of dark theming, the use of death and the focus on disturbing periods of history or culture has a particular purpose within the context of that space. So throughout my visit at Whiskey Pete's, I wondered, what's the overall purpose here? Now, you could say there is a theme here of the Wild West, and certainly the Wild West, you think of violence and shooting and gangsters. But I wondered, how would the guests respond to this use of dark theming? And in a sense, you have three themes going on. You have the Pony Express, Wild West era theming. You have certainly the backstory of bootlegging as well. You also have then the Arthurian Excalibur-like theming that I'll talk about in another video feature. And then you also have this, early 20th century gangsters and, that emphasis on violence and death and everything associated with that era as well. So I have to say that my visit to Whiskey Pete's in Primm, Nevada was an interesting and intriguing one. I was constantly asking myself questions. I have never seen anything quite like this, certainly in a casino, this emphasis on what I'm calling dark theming. Theme parks, some representations, but in a more entertainment venue, you could say, not in a context like this one here. And as I said earlier, we're more accustomed to seeing this in museum spaces and certainly not in casinos. So if you happen to be in Primm, Nevada, you might pay a visit to both Whiskey Pete's and Buffalo Bill's, which are just on the opposite sides of the street. And I hope you enjoyed this video feature and it allowed you to think a little bit more about the significance of dark theming, the role that it plays, and its impact on the guests who might visit any particular space. Hope you enjoyed this video feature today here in Primm, Nevada at Whiskey Pete's looking at dark theming, and please come back for additional video features of the Immersive Worlds Handbook.